The most common data relationship between two subjects is called a many-to-many. It's a situation where one subject could have many of another subject related to it, and vice versa. The other subject can have many of the original subject. So we have a situation here between contacts and events where an event, which is a major subject of our database, can have many different contacts involved in helping out with the event or organizing the event or hosting the event. And conversely, a contact could participate in many events. So it's a many to many between contact and events. And as I mentioned uh, earlier, that we can't directly do this by just putting fields in contact that relate to event and fields in event that relate to contact. What we need to do is we build another table that's called a junction table, where we actually bring the relationship together. And really what a junction table is a junction of two one-to-manys. So we'll have in our junction table, you can almost think about it as being another kind of supplemental table. If we didn't have contact, you'd have a one-to-many between the event and this table. Again, if you didn't have event, you'd have a one-to-many between contact in this table. But the fact that they both have one-to-manys to this table, and it's a firm one-to-many, and those one-to-manys together will make up what basically is our alternate key to that junction table. We basically have a junction of the relationship where this one and this one now have a relationship to each other. And the main reason we do this is because it's not just about bringing those tables together. There may actually be other fields that are associated with those two things happening. For instance, a contact working on an event could have a role for that event. There could be information about, say, contributions that they might make. Maybe they contribute. Maybe the event happens to be an auction or something, and the contact could contribute an item to it, or maybe even make a monetary contribution to it. Okay, that would be about the contact and the event at the same time. Those three things, instead of just being about an event or about a contact. It'd be about the contact participating in the event. Another way to show this, and as I said, most of the data relationships that exist out in the world between subject relationships tend to be many to many. Yes, there are one to manys. Oftentimes, though, we will start with a one to many, like we have with the supplemental table between contacts and phones, and over time, it may actually grow into a many to many. For instance, let's say we had a situation where two people could have shared the same phone. We may have had to put a phone subject in there then and then have a junction table that brought together contacts and phones. But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself right now. Let's go back to just what does it mean to build a junction relationship, a firm many to many using a junction relationship and a junction form and a junction table to do this. So going to our lesson, you can see the schema for a typical many to many junction relationship, a many many relationship. What we have two major subjects in our database. So in this case, we have TBL event and we have TBL contact. And keep in mind, depending on the nature of the database, one of these subjects may be, I don't want to use the word superior, but maybe more dominant in the whole meaning of the database than the other one. For instance, if this was a database about charities and the events they do, event would likely be the dominant subject in this relationship then. Contacts wouldn't be. Now, if the database was purely about who my contacts were, then contacts might be. But in this case, I would think that event would be the more dominant relationship. And that will come into play later on when we talk about the forms that we make for this. But right now, we have an event and we have a contact. They're in a many to many. And what I do is I create what's called a junction table now that will bring those together. How are they brought together? We have a foreign key for each one of those in this junction table. And together, those two fields, at the very least, will make up the alternate key for the junction table. Now, unlike the supplemental table, where it's usually the two fields and that's it. You'll have a foreign key field and a supplement field. Okay. In the case of a junction table, these two will always make up the foreign key, but you will usually have another field called the junction field. At least one field. Now, you have many junction fields, okay? Sometimes the junction field should also be included in the alternate key, and I'll point out one of those later on. But right now, let's just build one where we have basically just the two foreign key fields making up the alternate key of the junction table. And again, we still call the junction table the receiving table, but it has two sending tables. It has both the event and the contact as its sending table. So the one that you work with is the one, obviously, that you're going to have related to each of the foreign key fields that are in the junction table. So let's go over to the database now and actually do this. Okay, and again, I have already done this for you, this particular one for you. I have this one that's called TJN event contact, and the little caret sign means it's a junction. So we have a junction between event and contact. And again, could I say contact event? Sure, it will. But what I usually do is whichever one is the dominant subject, I'll list that first, and then the other subject second. So I'm going to build this again just like I did this in the supplement. I'm just going to build this one for the sake of you seeing how I did this, but then I'm going to delete it and just use this one to actually build my forms later on. And of course, the relationships haven't been set here either, so I'll use it in this tutorial, this particular one, to make the relationships. But to build this event contact table, what I did is I just took this ball object, I did a copy and a paste, and again, I renamed it to be event junction contact. So event junction sign TJN event junction sign contact. Again, extremely important you name these correctly, because otherwise they won't work with certain things that are in the database, or in the BAL, I should say. So we're going to do that, and it says another one already exists. It's right, so I don't want to create that. But what I'll do is I'll just tack on a new here for now. Again, we're not going to save this one anyway. Well, we won't keep this one, I should say. All right, now we've got that in here. This is it right here. I'm going to open it up in Design View. And again, everything that I will do right now has already been done for you. I'm sorry, my property sheet is all the way over for some reason. There we go. Okay, now now I pulled the other one over by accident. Sometimes you have to jockey windows around in Access to be able to see what you really want to see. So here we go. And before I go any further, I'm going to actually open up the indexes so you can see that these two right here, these two foreign key fields that I'm going to set up, are already in there as the alternate key. And this is it right here, this KAI, blah, blah, blah. That's the alternate key for this. And you'll see that those two are in here. All right. Did it matter which one I listed first? No, not really. Okay. But, sometimes this is one of those interesting situations where they may not always be a text field that it's related to. You could actually have one of these be a date time field, and then if it's in descending order, then you want to consider, do you want to put that first or the other one second, or have it second. Typically, it really doesn't matter either way, and most of the time they will be text fields that will be sending their values to this table. I'll come back here and set this up later on, but right now I want to just work on creating these foreign key fields. So first off, I'm going to go over here in description and call this event contact. And then I'm going to come up here, and subject one for this is event. So I want to make all these things that say subject one event. Just a simple replacement, simple template type thing again. Just like we did on the supplemental relationship. Let's see. Actually, it's the supplement relationship, right? Yep. Select an event, and then again, it's lookup. And in its lookup, you're going to have a similar thing that you did on the supplement relationship. So I'm going to come in here. It's already got the subject bound here. What I want to do, the default subject object bound, and what I want to do is I want to show the subject I'm working on. So I want to show TBL event. Close that up. Come down here to the different columns that I have here. And the first one here, I change the table to event. And now I have a record identifier for the event. Again, don't delete this one yet. You do that last, okay? Now, alternate key field. Now here's where something is interesting. I want to go back for a second. I'll tell you what, I'm going to save this right now and close it down because I want to go back. I'll have to come back here and open it up again. But I want you to see something here, all right? When we were on the, if I go to the event table right now and open it up in design view, and I go to its indexes, you'll see it has a multi-field alternate key. That means that when I hit that drop down, I can't just have the values from one field there. I have to have the values from both fields so I could actually see what I want. And you can see here, it actually does have event, and the start date is the other one. So to identify an event, I have both a name for the event and the start date. The reason is I could have multiple events with the same name, but they will have different start dates. So together, those two things make up the alternate key of this. All right, so when I have that drop down on that foreign key field in the junction table, I don't want to just show event. I also want to show the start date of the event. So I have to create what's called an alias field that will do that for me. So I'm going to close down the event right now, the event table. I'm going to go back to this junction table, and I'm going to reopen that query. And instead of having this alternate field key field where I'm substituting the name of the field, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in. First off, I'll tell you what I am going to do. I am going to take both out of event. I'm going to take the event and the start date. Okay, it's right here. Now we'll assume that no two things could have the same start date and start time. All right, or the same start date. So we're going to say all events will be on unique dates, and that will work. Okay, if I did happen to have this same event on the same date twice, then I probably would need more than that. But I can't see that happening. So I want to keep that in here, but I'm going to unshow them, and then I'm going to say when I bring up that list. Now, I haven't created the list yet. I'm going to do that in a second here. Okay, but when I bring in that list, I want it to be sorted ascending on events and then descending on dates. Okay, and now that's in here. Now I need to build what's called that alias field. Remember, this field truthfully won't be shown, right? In fact, I'm going to delete it. In fact, I shouldn't put that one in there. I'll just replace what was in here. Let me cut this one out. All right, so now I've got this. Remember, when it comes up from the lookup, it would be bound to the primary key, just like it always is, but it will show whatever value is here. Right now, it's set up to be a single field value. I want it to be a multiple field string, basically. So I'm going to wipe out, first off, I'm going to wipe out the table. I'm going to turn off the sort order, because now if I wanted to, if I wanted the events to be ascending and the start date to be ascending, I wouldn't have had it built this. I could have just said ascending here and it would have come up right, because it would have first sort ascending on event and then ascending on start date. But because I want the start date to be descending, I actually have to put these fields in here and just show them not shown and not have a sort order here. So not sorted here. Okay. So now we're ready to go. Now I actually want to build this concatenated string. So I'm going to come here now and right click in that field and open it up and build. And then I'm going to wipe this out. And I'm going to build a derived field basically that has this. And I'll call this event. Yeah, we'll just call it, I hate to call it just event because we already have an event in there. Let's call it event list, something like that. There you go. And now I'm going to place those two fields in here and build them as a string and concatenate. And I'll put a little standing bar between them. So what I want to do is I want to go out to expand this one that says the name of your file itself. Then find the tables and then find the table that has those fields. So we've got TBL event. Okay, and now you see all the fields that are in TBL event. I want to have this one that says event, so double click that. And if you get this EXPR in the soft brackets, just eliminate that. All right, you need a single space though after the colon. Now that's going to be evaluated to be a text string. I want to concatenate in this text string a bar. So I'm going to say ampersand, which means now concatenate, and then in double quotes, a space, that's standing bar, and then space in there. Okay, so I got it. Basically, I think some people call that a separator symbol. All right, and so now I've got that. That's a string, and now I want to concatenate another string. And the other string I want to concatenate is the start date. It's right here, double click, and now it's in there, and I say OK, and that should be it. All right, save it. Okay, now let's get rid of the subject table. Remove the table. I just right clicked and now I do remove table, and now I'm all set. Oh, save it again, just for sake of argument. And again, never use the save as here, otherwise it'll make an object out of this query, and we don't want to do that. We want it to actually we want it to be what's called encapsulated into the field itself. We don't want to separate it from the field. So now close it, and now we've got that. All right. In fact, I'm going to go back and open it again just to show you that when I run this now, you get a list. You just get those two fields, right? Because those other two weren't shown. And you can see I don't have a whole lot in here, but what it did is it first sorted on this in alphabetical order and then this in descending order, and it does look like that. Okay, so close that down now. Go back, and now everything else is set up here, and again, there is no list item form for this. So I'm done with that foreign key field. Now I go to the other foreign key field, and this is the one for contact. So subject to is contact. I'm just going to go in here and say contact. And again, contact over here in the description. Always get rid of those curly brackets. That just means to do a substitution. I'll go back to general and do fix its caption to be contact. And you must select a contact. And by the way, if it was something that started with an alphabetical letter, you can make it an, whatever it is. You know, and by the way, you have freedom to do whatever you want with the validation text. I just gave you something to get started with. If you want to say please select, feel free. If you want to be polite, that's good. Anyway, let's go to the lookup now and do the same thing now on that one. But on this one, going back to contact and open it up, you'll see that in contact, I go up to indexes, it's just a single field alternate key. So this is just exactly how we did contact over in the supplemental table when we did the contacts phones. It's exactly the same procedure. I just come in here, I add contact table, set down, go down here and expand this and this one so I can see a little bit better. And I change that to contact, the TBL contact, and I change this one to TBL contact, and I change the alternate key to the contact name. That's the alternate single field alternate key for this. Sending order, I don't have to show anything else because those are the only two things I need. And then I close down the subject, remove table, Save it. Let's run it just to make sure. Yep, there they all are, just like they were last time. And then I close out the query. And that one's done now. So now I've actually got my alternate key set here. I've got my two foreign key fields that the alternate key will be involved in. All right. So now I'm going to go up here to design again. I'm going to look at my indexes, make sure those are really picked. Yes, they are. Event and contact, the alternate key for each one of them. And again, you can rename these. If you want to just name that one alternate key and this primary key, you can. Otherwise, you can make it KAI event caret. I always forget where the caret is. Here, contact. That's kind of, they call that symbol a caret symbol. It means junction in math. Event caret contact. Just to make sure it's all right. And always make sure your primary key is set yes, yes, and then no yes for that. And you're set to go. And I should show you while I'm at it. If you look at event, you'll see that it's, sorry, go to its general. You'll see that it does have a validation rule that says it is not null. That is a required field, but it is not indexed. Same thing with contact. It's a required field, not indexed. All right. So the other thing that we absolutely have to do on any junction table is to add what's called a junction field. In other words, there has to be a reason why you're bringing this together. There's something you want to track that has to do with both the event and the contact at the same time. You don't want to just have contact and event. No, think about it. If all I was worried about is what events this contact participated in, couldn't I have just done a multi-pick on contact that had the list of the events and you would pick the ones that they did? Conversely, if all I was concerned about were the contacts that participated in an event, couldn't I have a multi-pick that just lists the name of the contacts and we pick that? All right? But we have more. We have other fields that are related to both the event and the contact at the same time. All right. I mentioned to you before when we did category relationships and we had the multi-pick that it really is a many-to-many. Okay. When we did that, it actually created a junction table that had each of those values behind the scene. It did what you're basically doing now when you only had these two. Okay. But now you want to expand that out. You want to actually have something associated with the fact that these two are together. That we have events that can have multiple contacts and contacts can have multiple events. And when contacts work an event, there's something about them working that event that we want to make sure that we have collected that data about. And that's why we're doing this. This is why this is a firm, and we called it when it was in a category relationship, a multi-pick category relationship, we called that a soft many-to-many. All right. And I know it shows up as a one-to-many in the diagram, but again, that is just for Axis's purposes. The truth is it's truly a many-to-many on the multi-pick category. It is one-to-many on the single pick. So now we've got a many-to-many where we're actually expressing that and putting another field in here. And the other field I want to put in here right now, well, I'll tell you what, I actually want to put 3 in. Now, I'm saying you have to have at least one. You can have multiple junction fields. So I'm going to put the other 2 in first because they're pretty easy. Okay, I'm going to have a txt event caret contact dash contribution item. So in other words, let's say there is a need to, maybe this is an auction, not necessarily, it could be anything, but they want to contribute something to that auction. And so we'll just make this we'll make it a short text field, I think. Yeah, short text for now. And I'm going to say contribution item. And again, same thing down here, contribution item. I'll keep all the other properties the same. I'm not going to make it required. I'm not going to put a default value on there. I'm not going to have a formatter. I'm 255. That's good. And of course, I always get rid of allow zero length. So we're good on that one. All right. Now you might think to yourself, well, what if I want to contribute more than one item? Yeah, well then now I have to do yet another relationship in order to. Yeah, I would have to have a supplement basically in here, and I could do that. I could have a supplement from the junction table to a supplemental table if I wanted to do that. But I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to say they're going to limit it to one contribution item. In fact, if they wanted to put more in there, they could put in notes. We'll just say that that is an extremely rare thing for people to give more than one item. So we're just going to keep track of one of them. All right. And then I've got a contribution value. This would be in the case that they decide to give me a monetary contribution. So same kind of thing, event. And again, this is the name of the table itself, right, that I'm typing in right now. Event contact, meaning that this field belongs to that table, and then contribution value. We're going to make that a currency field, contribution value. You know, if you wanted to, you could just copy that since we're going to put the same thing on the caption. And just come down here and paste it in on the caption. And as always, you know, because it is a currency, we want to make it probably positive. The contribution value must be positive. Something like that. Okay. Everything else looks pretty good on there. I'm going to say fine. I'm not going to make it required. I'll move those up so that they're above the standard fields. All right. But I still have one more field I want to build. And a junction field really could be anything. It could be any type of field. And that also includes that it could be a foreign key. Maybe I want a role. They could have a single role for this, let's say. So I want them to be able to pick a role off of a list, and that would be a junction for that would be the role for a context role for this event. So I want to put I want to put a lookup field here, obviously, and I want that to be so I'd have to have a lookup table and lookup form. I just happened to build that already. And if I come down here, you'll see this one that says TLK event contact star role. That would be the lookup table that I want to get values from for a foreign key field here. I also built the form for that right here. FLK event caret contact star role. Right? So we're going to build a single field lookup just like we are used to doing. So I'm going to go to single pick lookup, go to design view, take that off of there, Control C, come down here, put it in there, and then I'm going to I'm going to reuse that same string right here. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to use event caret contact star role record identifier. And I could now I could say role, or I could say event role, or whatever you want, or contact event role, whatever. I'm just going to say role and role, and then I'll go to the lookup, and I will go help myself out a little bit since I'm kind of lazy typing here. I'm just going to capture that part of that because it's what I really want to substitute down here. Control C, and then I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to close this down so I can see more of that. So you can see me doing the replacement. This one here that says receiver category, as usual, going to go in here. You should be able to do this in your sleep by now. V. All right, and so now I've got that one in there, and I also want to make sure I associate, I should say, the lookup form. So now that's associated. So we're pretty much done with that one. Save it. I'm going to move it up. And since I don't need that template anymore, I could have used it, but I don't need it now. I'm just going to go up there, highlight it, and delete it. The reason I didn't need it because I just built them from scratch instead. So there you go. But I could have built one of these, say, from that template, this one right here from the template. I could have gone there and done that. I could just substituted them in. So save it, and now let's go over and see what we've got. Now we can look at this directly from the junction table. So I'm going to go in here and look at this, and you're going to see what we've got here is we've got the event with its drop-down list. We have the contact in its drop-down list. We have the role and what it can pick from, and you can bring up its, boy, this is starting to look like an application, isn't it? I got the contributor item that I could type in whatever that is, up to 255 characters, and then I have a contribution amount that I could put in here. What I don't have right now is referential integrity. I haven't really built the relationship model yet or turned on referential integrity yet. So I'm going to close this down, say yes, but it doesn't matter because I'm about to delete it anyway. So we're going to get rid of that because I'm going to go back and actually use the one I already built for you. All right. So this one that says new, I'm just going to delete it right now to get rid of it. All right. If I go over now to database relationships, okay, and you've got, there it is. Okay, that's the one I've already built for you. It's exactly the same. It's an exact copy of what I just did. And what I want to do, and you can see I even set up the category relationship here for you just to do it because I know you already know how to do that. So we got the category relationship between the role for the event contact, but now I actually want to put in the referential integrity from both the contact and the event. Let's start with the event. I'm going to pick that one. Again, just like we are used to, you pick the primary key field and then you drop it in on top of whatever foreign key it is sending its value. It would send its value to. In this case, event record identifier. Make sure it's really that you didn't accidentally pick contact. If you did, you could just cancel out of this. All right. I enforce referential integrity. Always put Cascade Update on. Do I want Cascade Delete? So now you have to think about this, okay? Most of the time, I would turn Cascade Delete on. Why? Would it make sense for me to have information about the contact working on the event if the event record was deleted? Probably not. Unless for some reason I really wanted to archive it. Then if I really want to archive it, in other words, I want that to last even if we got rid of the event record. Because maybe I want to keep information about the contact, but I don't care about past events that we did. All right. And I want to know that they actually worked in a past event, even though the event record's been taken out. I could leave Cascade Update off. However, remember, with referential integrity set, it won't let me just delete this if I do it that way, okay? I've got to actually go in and physically change some things in order to get rid of that record anyway. So I really think I would want to have Cascade Delete on. And if you look at most of the tutorials I do where I do a many-to-many and most of the write-ups I've got in my notes and all that, I can't think of a time I ever leave this undeleted, all right? Now, again, it's up to you, all right? But understand, if you leave it undeleted, then that event record probably won't ever be able to go away, all right? And I do want to be able to once in a while clean this up of old events I don't care about. So I'm going to say Cascade Delete on, meaning that I get rid of that record's going to go away, which means I've also lost the events that some of the events that a contact has worked on would go away then, all right? That's why you got to be careful with this. So I'm going to say create and do that. Same logic going the other direction. I click on contact, the primary key, come down here, drop it in contact, enforce referential integrity, update on, delete on, okay? Now again, by doing that now, if I ever got deleted a contact, that associated record down here would go away. The event would still be there that contact worked on, but anything about that contact would go away if I've got Cascade Delete on, and so that will go away. All right, this record in the junction table will go away. I realize that junction relationships are one of the toughest relationships. It is definitely the one that requires the most work, but again, it is the one that exists the most out there, so you have to be really good at it. That's why on your final project, I insist that you have at least one junction relationship in there. It is probably the most important thing we do in class all semester is create a junction relationship. But that doesn't mean there aren't others. That doesn't mean the supplement's not important. It definitely is. And again, as I said, sometimes you may think of something as being one to many, and then the nature of things change, and it becomes a many to many. And you'd have to go back and rebuild this. But it turns out that isn't that difficult to do. And one of the things I've seen actually is some people make everything many to manys, and then do things like make one of these unique, so that you could only have one record for a contact, or something like that. I personally wouldn't do that. I would actually use the supplement table, and I would use this junction table. I think it's a lot easier to build, and we could always do a data conversion from a supplement into a junction if you needed to do that. It's really not that difficult, and it can be done through what they call action queries that I may talk about toward the end of the class. But for the sake of our class, you will mostly have in your project. You will definitely have a lot of category relationships. Usually, you will probably have a supplement or two, and you'll have at least one junction, maybe more, depending on the nature of the different relationships between your subjects in your project. So those are the ones. When I do my work out in the field, I would say about 95% of the relationships I build are these three that you're seeing here right now. But those aren't the only ones. So I'm going to talk about some of the other ones uh, toward the end of this lecture. But right now, what I want to do is I want to go back now, and now that we have these relationships set, I want to actually build forms that we can put into our forms, subforms that we could put into our subject forms that allow us to manage this data, the data that's in our supplemental table and in our junction table.